Cars are lining up ready to go out onto the grid for race 2 of the BRSCC Alfa Romeo Championship. Graham Seeger at the front, in pole position in the GTV, but it's further down in the grid, in the twin spark element of the championship, where we see Tom Hill, championship leader in the twin sparks, second overall in the Alfa Romeo Championship, leading the way this weekend. As you can see, he's getting ready to go out onto the grid. It's going to be tough and exciting because the weather conditions are changing yet again. It's drying up. There is a dry line forming on the track. This race is anyone's. It's over to Andy to take you through all of the action.
3, 2, 1. Yeah, thank you very much, Lloyd. Cars lining up on the grid. Graham Seeger it is who will have the pole position. The grid for this one based on the result from the previous race. So it's Seeger from Austin, the top two. Rob will be hoping to keep it on the island this time. Chris McEwan, Robin Mansell from Daniel Wood, and Ray Foley likewise hoping to get to the end this time around. Tom Hill won the Twin Sparks in race 1, so he starts on pole alongside Christian Leith, Ricardo Lascelles and Richard Ford on row 2. Then Dave Messenger, Mel Freeman, Ciprian Historica and Andy Inman at the back. So the cars line up on the grid, and after an entertaining race yesterday, particularly within the Twin Sparks, we saw some really good battles there which are set to be resumed now. We have a new championship leader in the shape of Tom Hill. His class victory in race 1 has meant that he moves ahead of the absent Paul Webster and extends his class margin over Richard Ford as well. But Graham Seeger at the front of the field looking to do the double in the GTV. There's a handout to the cockpit though for Robin Mansell, so he's going to be a non-starter. The rest of them do get away though as they rush down towards turn number 1, and Chris McPhee with that lightweight Abarth makes good at the start and gets into the race lead from Seeger and Austin side by side for second. The Twin Sparks are released from the grid and they will all have to dodge the stationary car of Robin Mansell, which they do, and Tom Hill it is who will lead that pack down towards Copse Corner. Dave Messenger going up the inside was trying to get past them all. At the front of the field though, Graham Seeger has used the power of the GTV to get back into the race lead, but then Scott Austin makes it 3 different leaders in 2 corners as Seeger backed off going in towards Beckett's, and so not only Austin but also Chris McPhee go back through. But now they run 3 abreast down the Wellington Straight. The power of the modified GTV finally sees Graham Seeger establish himself as the race leader. Austin is second, McPhee is third, Daniel Wood has had a good start in 4th position, and then there's a bit of a gap back to everybody else behind. Through Brooklands, as you can see, the racing line is sort of damp and greasy. There's quite a lot of standing water offline. There is some good news at least though. We've got the stricken car of Robin Mansell out of the way, so he will be a non-starter, but at least the car is out of the way. No need for a safety car to retrieve it. Leaders back out of Luffield. Scott Austin then in the 155 is in 2nd position and doing his best to stay with Graham Seeger. We never really got to see their comparative pace in race 1 because of course Austin threw it all away down at Brooklands, went off on the opening lap and fell down the order. This is how close it is in the Twin Sparks, basically as close as it was all day yesterday, and that's Christian Leith resuming his battle here with Ricardo Lascelles. Goes up the inside and that opens the door up potentially for Dave Messenger to go through as well. You see Tom Hill is leading the race. This is for 2nd place. There's a bit of panel bashing going on there between Messenger and Lascelles as they turn in, and Messenger gets a big tail slide. Lascelles backs out of it and then gets the rear of the car loose as well, and so in the end can't take advantage of the moment for Messenger, and they're all being caught by Richard Ford. So 4 cars together here for 2nd place in class, on board with Messenger who runs 3rd. And you can see that he, like many drivers, with the rain not actually falling anymore, choosing not to run with windscreen wipers. It's just really an added distraction, isn't it? They just let the rain X that they might have on the windscreens do the job of moving the water for them. There's Ray Foley finding the wetter part of the road down at Brooklands as he tries to find a way past Daniel Wood in the 164. Ray Foley, again, with the drive, we didn't really get to see how quick he could go because he beached it in the gravel trap on lap 2 down at Brooklands, so his 2nd race of the weekend already lasting longer than his 1st one did. He goes up the inside of Wood, makes that one look fairly easy. And Ray Foley, who many people were predicting would be one of the biggest challenges to Graham Seeger's dominance this weekend, but that's not really been the case. Back through Copse, there you go. Through Woodcote comes Dave Messenger, and who's that going up the inside? It's Ricardo Lascelles. That's for 3rd place in the Twin Sparks, but then Messenger cuts back to the inside towards Copse Corner, but the Grove and Dean Insurance car has the extra speed, and of course at the same time Messenger is trying to block any potential attack from Richard Ford. Lascelles gets sideways, Messenger gets sideways. Where's Richard Ford in all of this? He's not quick enough off the corner to take advantage. But this is cracking racing between these three. They're allowing Christian Leith to escape, though, in second place. So we'll now see whether Christian maybe can go after the race leader, Tom Hill. Christian, on his return to racing this year, has yet to score a race victory in the Twin Sparks. He's had a couple of podiums, but not yet been onto the top step. So he would maybe see this as one of his best opportunities to do so. Messenger and Ford running wheel to wheel now down the Wellington Straight. But there is your class leader. It is Tom Hill that leads the way. Second place then for Christian Leith. Third is Lascelles, side by side for fourth, with Messenger on the inside but Ford on the outside. Now in the full wet conditions, the line that Richard Ford was on would be the grippier line outside, and indeed it may still be the case in these damper greasy conditions, because he's been able to get a better exit from the corner, puts him on the outside through Luffield, but another good exit here, and then you're onto the flat out section down past the pits. There's a bit of understeer there for Messenger. Richard Ford scrabbling for grip up the inside but can't quite get there. He's got momentum though, tries to take it to the outside line, but there's nothing doing there either. So for now, Dave Messenger staying in front, but Richard Ford looking the quicker of the two. Looks to the inside line now down towards Copse Corner. There's still no way through. And Dave Messenger putting up a robust defence here. But the car does not look happy. It's understeering through the tight corners. It's oversteering through the high-speed corners. It's surely only a matter of time before Richard Ford picks his moment and goes through. This could be it. He's alongside. He's got his nose ahead, and he's bought himself the inside line for Beckett's. So Richard Ford will go through into fourth position now in the Twin Sparks. Messenger will try to fight back, though. He's now got the wider line through the right-hander. But the car just doesn't look good, does it? It's sort of wallowing through the corners. Not enough grip at either end, and therefore Dave doesn't have the confidence required to really try and take the fight back to Richard Ford. There you see the gaps at the front of the Twin Spark field. A little bit bigger than they were yesterday, although Tom Hill ran away with the race. But for second place, we had that good battle between Christian Leith and Riccardo Lascelles. Well, this time around, Lascelles not quite able to go with him, although he has now escaped, of course, from Richard Ford and Dave Messenger. So it'll be interesting to watch Lascelles' lap times, see whether or not he's able to do anything about Christian Leith in front, now that he's in some clean air. If anything, though, I'd say Richard Ford is gapping Dave Messenger and going after Lascelles for a podium, so to keep an eye on that. Richard Ford, twice a winner this year in the Twin Sparks, including a couple of weeks ago at Snetterton, last time out, where in fact he was a double race winner. So he got both of his race victories at Snetterton, did Richard Ford, taking advantage of Tom Hill's non-finish in race 1 and then a third in race 2 from the back of the grid. Down towards Beckett's we go, on board with Dave Messenger, and in front of us we see the second, third and fourth place cars getting ever further away at the moment. He's not quite able to stay with them. Dave Messenger 6th in the championship coming into this weekend, but that equated to 3rd in the Twin Spark category, behind only Tom Hill and Richard Ford. He was on 98 points, Christian Leith was on 74, so some 24 points back. So no matter what happens here, Messenger should hang on to that 4th place in the Twin Spark Championship, but he's going to lose quite a few points potentially here to Christian Leith, who already has a 2nd place to his credit. Looks good for another one now. Graham Seeger here, heading through Maggots and Beckett's. The car, I thought for a moment there, didn't look like it was going terribly quickly, but I think he was just being careful in the slippery conditions. They are getting drier, but it's not going to dry out before the end of the 20-minute race. So Graham Seeger, as well as just making sure he doesn't make any mistakes, also trying to manage the tyres though, because the less standing water there is, the more these wet tyres are going to start overheating potentially, especially for the more powerful cars. That could mean that in the second half of the race, Scott Austin, maybe the race comes to him. He's heading through Brooklands now, and he is holding on reasonably comfortably to 2nd place, but not letting Seeger get too far out of his sight. So if Graham were to start running into some issues, then perhaps the slightly less powerful 155 may be kinder on its tyres, and may allow Scott Austin to mount a challenge in the second half of the race. We are not yet at the midway point, so it's time for this to change. You can see them both running down towards the pit wall now. They're not trying to put some sort of coded message to their pit crew. They're trying to find the wetter side of the road so as to cool down the tyres, because the tyres they will run on in the wet are grooved tyres. Usually the modified and power trophy cars running on slicks, so these grooved tyres give good grip in the wet conditions, but because the blocks start to move around, they can really get very hot very quickly when it starts drying out, and so they'll start searching for the drier lines, which is what they're doing as they head again down the Wellington Straight, finding where the standing water is, using that cool water to try and bring down the tyre temperature as much as possible. There is Graham Seeger, stunning GTV working its way through Brooklands in beautiful isolation for the time being. There will be some traffic for him to deal with before the race is over, though. He will eventually catch the back of the Twin Spark cars. There's the battle for third place going on between Chris McPhee and Ray Foley, and I think Ray Foley's about to go through. He's on the outside line at Luffield, but should be able to find some decent grip round there. You can see the corner speed that he's able to take, and I think Ray Foley was able to make that one stick. Back with the Twin Sparks, and Richard Ford this time with the tank slapper through Copse Corner. Every lap it seems one of these cars inside the top 5 in the Twin Spark category has a bit of a moment. He had been pulling away slightly, I would say, from Dave Messenger, and that is the case. He's found a way past Lascelles now for third, but very nearly threw it all away. Tom Hill leading the category though, but Richard Ford, of course, is his nearest rival in the Twin Spark Championship. Now, Richard came into the weekend third overall in points and 26 points behind Paul Webster. Well, I don't think he did enough in race 1 to move ahead of Paul, but a podium finish here in this race, which is at the moment what he's on for, could move him into second place overall in the championship. But he's still losing points to Tom Hill. That's not the way to do it, though. The car getting very loose as it comes through Luffield, and then that kills your momentum off the corner. Ricardo Lascelles therefore gets in the slipstream, tries to work up some speed through Woodcote and down towards Copse Corner, but Richard Ford still happens to get off the corner pretty well, and so Lascelles has to wait for another opportunity to try and retaliate. Back through Copse, and again, Ford's car not looking particularly happy from the rear. Lascelles, actually, ironically, given it was him who was getting sideways earlier on, he's actually looking pretty stable through there now. Back up towards Beckett, he's closing back in on Richard Ford now. But you can see gone are those puddles of standing water offline down at Beckett's that we had in race 1 that were catching people out. The same true down at Brooklands. As they race down the back straight, they've left Dave Messenger for dead now behind them. There is Tom Hill. Christian Leith in second. Third is the number 31 car of Richard Ford. Fourth is number 27, Ricardo Lascelles. Looks as though maybe the rain's starting to come down again now. A few drivers putting their windscreen wipers on. Yes, look at the rain on the camera lens there. It's definitely coming down quite heavily, so the condition's going to start changing again. Just as it looked like the track was starting to dry out, all of a sudden it starts getting wetter and wetter again, and perhaps now standing water could potentially start to become a bit of an issue. Back out of Luffield they go. Really, Ricardo Lascelles is starting to slip back now. I'll be interested to see whether Richard Ford can go after Christian Leith. If he can, they would be some valuable points, but easier said than done, I suppose. Through Copse he goes, back onto another lap. He certainly seems quick, though, and I'd say apart from Tom Hill, he's probably the quickest Twin Spark car on the track, but there's a bit of a gap to close to get to Leith. There is time, though, that if he got past Christian Leith, he could even go after Tom Hill, because on the previous lap, Richard Ford was the fastest Twin Spark car on the track, so Richard bobbling his way through Beckett's. Look at the way that he's latching onto the tail now of Leith as they head out onto the back straight. These two identical 156s, in fact all 4 of these cars identical, and that's what makes the racing so close within the Twin Spark element of the championship. In the dry they tend to get even closer than this. If you haven't seen much of the Alfa Romeo Championship in the past, then you won't necessarily know that despite being the less powerful cars on the grid, they often produce the most entertaining racing. There's the most powerful car on the grid, that's Graham Seeger, and he's about to put a lap on some of the leading contenders in the Twin Spark Trophy. Number 5 car works its way through Brooklands, serenely on its way here, and really hasn't been headed all race long. Through the left, through the right at Luffield, then down towards Woodcote, and it's looking good here for Graham Seeger. There's Tom Hill, your race leader in the Twin Sparks. Now, can Richard Ford do anything about Christian Leith for second place here? That's going to be the question. Tom Hill all on his own, but for second place it's very close indeed, down towards the braking zone, and Richard Ford not quite close enough to attack, but again he was quicker than the 2 cars in front of him last time. Ford on the power, trying to close in on Leith, but Tom Hill, black and gold car, distinctive livery, and he's always fairly easy to spot because he tends to be the one at the front of the field, and that has continued to be the case more often than not in 2018. Another win now will extend the championship margin so that as and when Paul Webster returns, and we hope that he will do next time out at Brands Hatch when the championship will support the Festival Italia. Then hopefully Paul Webster will be back and he'll be trying to score some points again, but he's going to have to score quite a few points to get back on terms with this man in the championship now, who arrived here 12 points behind Webster, but a potential double race victory will really reverse that situation. Side by side for second place though, look, and Richard Ford is on the outside of Christian Leith down towards Copse Corner. They almost lead, they do touch, oh, Richard Ford's off, he's on the grass, it's all gone wrong, round he goes, and does he make the gravel trap? Yes he does. Richard Ford off the road, and he will be frustrated with that. That was all a bit unnecessary really. Richard will feel that Christian Leith didn't leave him enough room. Leith will probably argue that he didn't know he was there. Unfortunately, it was just a case of two drivers trying to occupy the same piece of road, and off goes Richard Ford. So Richard, just as he was coming on strong and looking like he might be able to move into second in class, it all goes wrong and he ends up in the kitty litter. So Richard Ford's race coming to a bit of a disastrous end. And for Graham Seeger, that's one less car for him to have to negotiate, I suppose, as a back marker. But he won't have enjoyed seeing that up the road, because as the race leader, when you're about to catch a group of slower cars, the last thing you want to see is that they're fighting hammer and tong and driving into each other, because it's all too easy to get caught up in their dramas as well. There's Ray Foley. He is now ahead of Scott Austin. So Ray Foley is now into second position. Scott Austin's pace has dropped off actually slightly as the race has gone on, whereas I thought maybe it would improve. In actual fact, it has allowed Graham Seeger to pull out a very healthy margin now, getting on for 20 seconds. He is ahead of Ray Foley now in second, so Ray Foley going a lot better now in this race, mainly because he's actually survived beyond the end of lap 2. He is about to put Dave Messenger a lap down. Dave, of course, has just inherited a position within the Twin Sparks as a result of Richard Ford's off. Here's Seeger, 3 Brooklands. The number 5 Alfa Romeo just working his way gently and easily through the back markers. And he is in sublime form this weekend, and we hope we'll see more of Graham Seeger as the year goes on. He's about to lap the Twin Spark leader, Tom Hill, the championship leader as well. And Seeger works his way across the start-finish line down towards a yellow flag zone at Copse Corner, because Richard Ford's car is in the process of being recovered. But again, like most places here at Silverstone, there is a live snatching operation, so the recovery vehicles can head out on the circuit under yellow flags, which means there's not always a need for a full safety car. They can continue racing around the rest of the track, and just no overtaking allowed at the corner where the recovery is taking place. So no overtaking allowed at Copse, but that didn't bother Graham Seeger. He'd already long since dispatched of Tom Hill. And as they make their way back out of Beckett's, he starts to disappear off into the distance. Tom Hill not likely to be caught by Christian Leith now, you'd imagine, either. So Richard Ford's demise has robbed us of a bit of a grandstand finish there, I think, in the Twin Spark category. Graham Seeger on his way through Luffield Corner, getting into the closing stages now of this race. Seeger running within the modified category. Now, you don't score full points for a class that has less than 3 entries, and of course he is the only modified entry this weekend, so he's not here to think about championship points though, really. He's just here to have a good time, have a bit of fun, joining the championship halfway through, but whether or not he comes back out later on in the season, we'll have to wait and see. It'll be nice to see him back out there though. Be nice to see a couple of the drivers that haven't been here this weekend returning as well, the likes of Chris Oxborough, Simon McPhee of course as well. Paul Webster we know is likely to be back for the next rounds of the championship at Brands Hatch. Down towards the right-hander they go, and Graham Seeger in perfect form here at the head of the field. The rain seems to have abated now as well, so the conditions, whilst not necessarily improving drastically, they're not getting any worse at least. Richard Ford with a non-finish here. Now he is in danger of losing second place in the Twin Spark category potentially, because Christian Leith and Dave Messenger are both going to outscore him, and Riccardo Lascelli as well, who coming into this weekend was languishing down in 9th in the championship, which was 5th in the Twin Sparks, yes, 5th place, and of course he's had a pretty good weekend here, albeit a slightly scrappy one at times, but the car's been quick. He's on for some decent points. Checkered flag is out though, and Graham Seeger has already been through to take the victory. Tom Hill comes through to win in the Twin Sparks as well. But it is Seeger that wins. Foley second, Scott Austin third, and Chris McPhee fourth. Then Daniel Wood and Tom Hill winning the Twin Sparks in 6th overall. Christian Leith is on the podium, so too Riccardo Lascelli, whilst Dave Messenger is 9th overall and 4th in class. Mel Freeman, Ciprian Nistorica and Annie Inman round out the finishers. We lost, unfortunately, from that race Richard Ford and Robin Mansell. Richard Ford in more dramatic fashion after that clash down at Copse Corner.
Graham, 2 wins from 2. It's great having you back in the Alfa Romeo Championship. Are we going to see more of you this year?
Oh, well, let's hope so. Well, from my point of view anyway. I don't know about anybody else's, but yeah, I enjoy racing with the Alfas. It's a good championship, it's full of great people, and the car's great fun to drive.
Yeah, we saw you have a little bit of a moment there coming in towards the Brooklyn to Luffield complex. Track's still a little bit greasy?
Well, I think it was getting wetter at the time, actually, wasn't it? And yeah, the main person I had to beat was me, and I nearly lost. So yeah, it was a bit of a wake-up call, but yeah, sorted it out.
Well, you've come away with 2 wins, a couple of pieces of silverware. It's fantastic to have you back in the championship. We look forward to seeing you again throughout the rest of the season.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ray, congratulations on your 2nd place there in race 2. It's been a tough weekend here at Silverstone, hasn't it?
A little bit, yes. So at least I finished up with the gravel in the first race. So yeah, we spent all day under the car pulling out stones, and it was well worth it. So yeah, it's lovely. Thank you.
And conditions have been changing throughout the weekend, and particularly in that last race, it looked like it was getting a little bit slippy towards the end of the race.
It was very tough actually, and I was trying, if you noticed, but I was trying to keep in the really deep wet at times to just get the tyre sort of gripping a little bit. But yeah, it was very, very slippery in places. So I was getting off the racing line as much as possible. But the car actually took you sometimes to where you didn't want to be. But
as is often the way, it's been great watching you race this weekend. Congratulations once again. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you very much, and look forward to being here again. Thank you.
Scott, 2 podiums from both of the races this weekend here at Silverstone. You must be pretty pleased with your actions.
Yeah, for a change. I mean, the car isn't super competitive, but the wet is a bit of a leveller, so I'm really happy with it. Really, really happy, to be honest.
Yeah, you're saying earlier on about the, you know, it's not necessarily the right car for that you would normally have at Silverstone, but the weather has really helped.
Definitely, yeah. I was doing a rain dance around the back again, and hoping and praying, and it rained halfway through the race, which helped cool the tyres as well. But I just haven't got enough power to live with these other guys. But they're modified. I'm power trophy, so I'm happy. Over, you know, class win and 3rd overall.
Couple of bits of silverware, it can't be a bad weekend.
Makes a change, yeah. Thanks.
Scott, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you next time out.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye.